Hello, and thank you for joining us today here on Transcending Ascension. Today we have author and poet Dwight Thompson here to enlighten us today with his work and how he sees the vision of poetry and how it can expand and help our consciousness. Let's bring him on board. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Dwight. How are you doing?
Blessings. Thank you so much for having me, Diana. It's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful time to be alive. And it's just amazing to share this space with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to give you the chance there to let the audience that might not have heard of you or heard of your work and tell them, like, what are you bringing to the stage here? Because I like this. Poetry really is activating. So tell us all in your own words of what you try to bring to the world.
My life is a bomb with a 5-ring alarm. 1, 2, 3, contact. Do you bodily harm? Do you catch where I'm coming from? As your life signs go critical. Beep, beep, beep. My hidden agenda becomes visible, physical, lyrical. My mission statement, hit the pavement. If anyone asks, like FedEx, I was sent to leave a dent in this world like a impact crater. I see the world for what it is, like a baby shower. However, I say you better run, son, before you get hit with the bullets from a gun. Rip through you with blades of ninjutsu. Your style got splayed as I rise into the blue. I don't need a crew. Express myself, spread life, mag train, switch tracks, blood vein. The pain was real when I felt the verbal daggers cut through my soul like a knife through cheese and crackers, but the storm gathers and it brews on your horizon. In the end, son, there can only be one. In the end, there can only be one. My name is Dwight Thompson, aka the Right Warrior, and that was one of my poems from my book Inner Sanctum, Protecting My Peace Through Poetry. The poem is entitled My Life, and it's an encapsulation of how I would love to be perceived by others. And I think in some aspects, how we want to be perceived also as peacemakers, as people who can interact in a loving, kind manner wherever possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I appreciate that. We need to find ways to come together and to communicate more. Often, a lot of the anger that comes out in society is just misunderstanding. Like, replace evil with ignorance, and that's really what you have. And then when you bring poetry into the game, it has throughout time transcended barriers and opened people's minds to things they wouldn't have thought of otherwise. The way Hollywood movies do for us now, too, like they shine lights on stuff, but poetry just has that way of doing a lot at once, where you can take an entire concept and unpack it with just one poetic sentence. You get it on multiple layers because the human is multi-layered. The human is the vessel that brings forth the story characters that exist in like the dimensional world that we're like walking through in this physical reality. But the rest of the world is so not physical. Like the rest of everything, including our emotions and everything, is not physical. And poetry is just that perfect piece that brings that magic out into the physical world. So it's very appreciated what you do with the poetry. And I saw that you do other work helping other people to bring their work forth.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, and to go back to what you mentioned about the poetry, the original way that we did warfare was with words, right? So when you would have one tribe fighting another tribe for land, or if there was the dispute about the marriage ceremony, about who is supposed to lead or do whatever they're supposed to do, when the two sides got together and there was about to be a conflict, a poet from each side would step forward and they would settle the dispute with their words. Because historically, and I'm glad you mentioned that, the point of conflict was resolution. It was not destruction. It was not annihilations of peoples and nations. Conflict was meant to foster communication and thereby resolution. So the two poets would face each other and with words, banter, gimmicks, limericks, poetry, they would just go back and forth and determine who would be the victor just on the strength of words alone. And in the spirit of competition, both poets understood the bigger battle. The point was to get both sides to go home safely to their families without shedding blood and with having a resolution to the conflict. And that is why poetry is so important nowadays, because that ability we each have to use our words to connect to the truths of the universe and to enable a communication, a dialogue. It doesn't matter if there's a language barrier or if there's a cultural difference. I love what you said, that we have so many things that seem to separate us, but the words we use, the intentionality, the purpose that we have is what brings us together. Even the conflict that we think has to be resolved by force of arms or by violence, with words, we can find a way to make it work. And that's important. So one of the things we do is a lot of folks come to us, between myself and my family business, the Right Warrior Business and Creative Writing Services. They'll come to us at different aspects. Some folks are in a second career, and so they're transitioning from being in one position for 20 years to now this new territory, and they need help with their resume. They want to do a mock interview, so we help with that. Some folks are more along the line of personal development, structured journaling, how to write in a meaningful way every day, daily affirmations, poetry prompts to help you capture your emotions and your intentions and your purpose better. And of course, we have our favorite topic, book publishing, right? Folks who want to tell a story, be it a family memoir or a cookbook. All of these are projects that we work with folks to make sure they understand the industry first, and then they understand the purpose. Like, why should we care that you wrote a book? Why should we even look at the book cover? It has to mean something, because humanity is built on stories. We tell stories to each other, and that's how we learn, and that's how we progress into the best version of ourselves. And this storytelling, this ability to publish a book, to write a business plan, is something that ties into your purpose, right? It's not a disconnected activity. If you like crocheting, go for it. That could be your soul song. The ability to interconnect this yarn and make colors and knit little hats and caps, that's beautiful. And if you want to make it a commercial endeavor as creative capital, make a business plan, make a 5-year projection plan, get your funding, do what you need to do to live in your purpose. You don't know, the smallest things can make us happy if we only allow them to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good service to bring to people, because some people, like, they have dreams and they have ambitions, but they don't know where to get started. And writing is more than just writing. It's why English in school, like just language, is one of the most important subjects that we take, because it's that mind expansion. So you could help people with their life plans, like even like you were saying, knitting. But if they're writing it out and they're getting deeply involved in the process, it will unpack it. Like, that's what writing has that power to do, is to take something and just expand upon it and to bring it more validity. Exactly. Yeah, so that's a really good service.
No, that's perfect. And that's the beauty of poetry, right? Is we're taking the truths of the universe and we just bring it down into a language we can understand. And then we're making it go from the point of a pen to explode in your mind into this great vista of collection of thoughts and processes and ideas. And oh my word, what is happening? And then we reach enlightenment and we reach a next level of consciousness. We reach purpose and the understanding that this world that we see is only a part of the big picture. What we experience on a daily basis is a small part of the big picture. There is an afterlife. There is a savior that loves us. There is faith that we can have with our divine creator. There is a place for us in this universe, in this wide cosmos of quarks and ions and solar flares. Humanity has a place in it. One of my favorite philosophers is Brian Swim, and he wrote a book called The Universe is a Green Dragon. And in it, he exposits that we are a reflection of the universe, because how brightly the stars shine, for example, is how we perceive the light of the stars. And in turn, the stars are a reflection of us, because our joy and interest allow the stars to become the best version of themselves. And this concept is part of why we write, of why we exist on this planet. We are all connected, and we're all part of the grand scheme of everything. And writing allows us to tap into that.
Yeah, 100%. And I take that further with that is literally true. Like the as within, so without, us and the stars are one and the same. And that, in like you were talking afterlife, the afterlife is a current lived experience even before we die. Like our actual soul is currently like living outside of us in the cosmos while we're living inside of it. And that writing exactly is always tapping into those places. And why people, when they're being like making profits, like when they're making stuff up out of the future, they're usually writing when it happens, because they're channeling it down. And if you want to get into channeling, one of the first things they teach you is automatic writing, because that's all just plugging directly up into the divine and bringing that all through. Did you always have a natural connection to it, or is it something that you like started doing and then found the truth in it?
A little bit of both. So growing up, my mom would always read to me bedtime stories. And then my father bought the first, I think, collection of Encyclopedia Britannica, which was back in the days. Now I sound a little bit more aged. We would have books, about 26 to 27 books representing the letters of the alphabet that were your encyclopedia. There was no internet, there was no social media.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
And
you
so
go and find the book. Yeah.
exactly. And you have to, index it and look down and find where it's located. So between my mom reading those bedtime stories to me and my father buying those educational resources, what ended up happening was by the time I was 12, I had read the entire Bible front to back. And by the time I was 13, I had read J.R.R. Tolkien's The Silmarillion. And then I entered poetry competitions and writing contests and so forth. What happened was I realized there was a connection between my writing, between my gift, between my ability to understand the world and my interpretation of it. And from there, my purpose just got bigger and bigger. Now in 2020, when COVID happened, my government job, my health, everything was nearly destroyed. And then I realized something. What you have is not something you can forget. Your traumatic experiences, your past. What you have to do is embrace it. And you have to pivot into a new direction using the full sum of your experience, of your existence. And from there, I began publishing my books and publishing my stories and helping others publish their stories too and their books. And now we are here, and it's been a 4-year journey. And I feel more invigorated and purposeful than ever, but at the same time, burdened with the weight of there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of folks who still need to express themselves and tell their truth and live within their truth. But you know what? We all have to start somewhere.
Yeah, I feel that push too, even in my own, like how I pretty recently graduated and became a minister reverend, as I felt there was just so much work that needed to be done. Like that push is coming through to all of us in our own different avenues, that there's so much work to be done. Like we're the pioneers of this new world, this new age that's coming down. And like we are the pioneers that are teaching the people how to live I don't want to say correctly because that improved like wrong, but like we were talking earlier about like how just knowledge will change everything. Just enlightening their information on what they're capable of doing as people, like what they're already capable of doing is bigger than they actually realize. And trying to get through to people this, like from what I teach, it's not easy. So much so that like it's easy to get frustrated, but I think you found a really good place of like ground zero to get started with people, to bring them in to like, we're now capable. I think like this might not have been possible 10, 20 years ago. We are capable of thinking more. We have been given, and not everybody realizes it, like more capacity. Like when you get your phone and like one day it's 10 gigabytes, but now it's up to a terabyte of space. That's like that's
Exactly.
within, so without. We're that too. We got like hardware upgrades. We can hold more information. And what you're doing is a perfect example of allowing people that wouldn't have otherwise seen it to expand. So that's beautiful.
No, that's fantastic. And I agree. 10 years ago, our computers, our cell phones were limited, right? Our access to information was limited. But now it's a way different story. When I talk to authors who, let's say they published their book in the early 2000s, 2005, 2006, right? Traditional publishing, where they signed to a big publishing house and, they get a small royalty check and so forth. When they talk about how it was back then, and this was maybe 15 years ago, it's a huge gap between how you get your book out there, between the information that you have. Now you can self-publish, or as we call it in our circle, independently publish on your own. Great quality books, amazing book covers, and do the distribution and marketing yourself, And if you sell 100 copies to your close friends, if you go to the local bookstore and just tell them, hey, I have a book, what do I need to do to get it on the shelves? And then out of 10 times, they'll work with you. You could go to your local library and say, hey, what do I have to do? What are the steps to get my books on your shelves? Or can I do a reading here? Is a children's book, can I do a children's book reading? Can I have a family power hour and just talk about my book, which talks about how you can, going back to crocheting, crochet a puppy in 30 minutes? There's so many opportunities now. We have the technology, we have the communication tools, we have the wherewithal. All we're missing is the desire.
Oh, we lost him due to internet connection. He has the invite, so he should be able to pop right back in. But fascinating discussion, fascinating conversation. Writing is something I've always felt very passionately for, that it can bring us to that next level. And I even kept here, my favorite person ever, The Alchemist, started just wanting to do poetry and then felt that it wasn't hitting the mark and moved into actual teaching. Or I don't know why she made the jump, but I know that she was very into her poetry and was sad that that's not where she was launching out of, because I can see that. Oh, he's back. Excellent. Perfect. Thank you for coming back. I was just talking more about poetry. And if you wanted to finish your thought you were just on and then take us into another one of your pieces, that would be great.
Oh, definitely. So one of my favorite poets, Khalil Gibran, he said this in On Children. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. And what you were mentioning earlier is part of that responsibility. We have, with our knowledge, the ability to share the information. So not only do we know for ourselves what we know, but we can see others on different stages of their own progress. Like, for example, I've lost a lot of vegan friends because in their mind, the urgency to save the world and to protect the environment and to go vegan is paramount, which I totally understand and sympathize with. However, they're of the opinion humanity is the worst. Let's destroy humanity and let's enliven the creatures and let the fish rule the seas and set all the pets free. And I'm like, how you got to your conclusion was a journey. It was a journey of understanding, of exposure, of communication, of talking. How can you expect others to just make a leap of faith without having any of their own personal experiences? You know, and that is what life is about. Even with Christianity, I've always said, and I've said it again, I don't need to tell anyone about God because everyone knows about God at this point. Everyone knows Jesus Christ is King, and we know what Christianity represents from a loving, kind point of view. We know at this point there have been 1,000 television shows and movies and pastors and ministers and churches. We know it's up to us to choose now. We must have grace and patience with anyone who is of a different opinion or view from us, because we were not born as believers or as faith-filled beings overnight. We are spiritual beings, but the consciousness is the journey we are all on. So we must be mindful, deliberate, kind, patient, and understanding when we are discussing, interacting, and conversing with folks who might not happen to believe as we believe. Even, and I dare say, especially if we think we are right. Just because you are right in your belief, that does not mean you can negate or overlook someone else's experience or their journey to their own enlightenment, whatever that might looks like to them. And that's what we're missing. I would love to share a piece. It's called The Black Bridge. The Black Bridge. Have you ever lost someone because of the color of their skin? Know that they are waiting for you in place of your faith that is just as you envision it to be. They are happy without the stain of prejudice. They are rich with whole body and mind. They are beautiful with the love they have for you. Before, when we had souls, animals had none. Now that animals have souls, we still have none. How else to explain why your loved one is not here with you, simply because of their darker golden hue, tone, creamy chocolate, nutmeg, ebony, ivory? The only thing they are missing is you. One day, they will stop their play and look up into a distance, unmarred by religion, belief, or doctrine, and see you. Their legs will stretch over beautiful fields and bright wildflowers. Their arms will reflect unblemished starlight, and their hair will glisten with the waters of many rivers and springs. When you and your loved one finally meet, it will be in the embrace that fills the intervening days, months, and years with love and togetherness. Your tears will flow into the ocean, and your laughter will mingle with the sound of the surf at high tide. You will hold hands and look into each other's eyes and know that this moment will last forever, beyond time, beyond space, and even beyond your memory of each other. The Black Bridge, Isola.
That was very nice. That was very good. And you feel that, like you feel it just like you feel it in a church when the pastor's doing a really good, when sometimes it's good and you feel it and sometimes it's not, and you don't. That you feel, like you could feel it and you don't even know what you feel. It's warm and it's building, like it's something. It's definitely an energy power. So thank you very much for sharing that. It's definitely appreciated, and we need more people to be coming forth with their work and their poetry and this like new I like the bridge there, because like we're all bridging into new beings, new ways of life, where this is a very sustainable way to live. And it's not like, no, go work in a factory, or like whatever the real jobs are that they've been pushing down our throats to work. That's no way to live. And I feel bad for the people that were living that way for the last couple hundred years, because it's no way to live. Living
Correct.
is poetry. Life is experience. And even if you're going to a 9-to-5 job, you should be doing some form of whatever your poetry is. Some people like dancing, some people like art. I'm a word person, so I'm with you on the poetry. I'm all about words and just information synthesizing together. Like, it's where it's at, I think, for the type of advancement I personally want to make. It's in words, it's in ancient words too, and then it's in the bridging of the new words and the new authors that are going to come forward, like yourself. So thank you very much.
Blessings. No, thank you. And I agree with you 1,000%. And especially if someone is in a 9-to-5, right? By the time you wake up in the morning, you get the kids ready for school, or you take the long 1.5 hour commute to get to work. You work, whether or not it's a good environment or a good culture, right? Then you come back home. By the time you do your laundry, you take a bath, you have dinner, it's like 8 o'clock, and you feel like, I'm too tired. I'm gonna just watch my favorite sitcom and just go to bed. What I would do, I would encourage you. Trust me, you can't go wrong. Put aside 15 minutes, 1-5, and simply write. Whether it be a haiku, or whether it be a short essay, or even a small vision board. Just what do I want to accomplish in the next 2 months? It could be doodling. At this point, I'll take anything. Okay, get a pack of crayons and just go crazy. The point is, this creative expression, this creative outlet that you do for you will help you organize your thoughts, communicate better, and find your purpose. Because while you're in your 9-to-5, and this is for everyone and anyone from the bartender to the high executive, you have a responsibility, because you are a brand. You are a personal individual. All business is personal. We were told a lie that business is not personal. Oh, we're making this decision to lay off 1,000 people just because it will help the profit margins. Well, it is personal, because you could have decided to reduce the salaries of the executives and keep the lay person's salary the same. So it is personal, because it is a person who is making that decision. And a quick note on capitalism. Capitalism at its purest will always work, because a true capitalist business, let's say, for example, a furniture company that also harvests the wood. A furniture company will never denude the entire hill of all the trees, because yes, they'll make a ton of furniture right now and make a ton of money, but in 5 years, when folks want new furniture or a different style, there are no more trees to turn into furniture. So a true capitalistic, functioning, understanding, sustainable business would by nature cut down a quarter of the trees over a period of years, and maybe plant no new trees in the same period of time. Trees take about 10 to 15 years to mature. So capitalism at its finest is always long-term sustainability. What we have now is not sustainable, is not long-term. I'm not even sure it's capitalism anymore.
Mm-mm.
There's a quote from one of our Asian cultures which says, the best society is one where a man plants a tree knowing he will never eat the fruit. And it simply means you can have actions that you do knowing you won't see the result of it, but your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren will reap the benefits. And guess what? It's okay. It's okay to not see your end game. In the Bible, David wanted to build a temple, and God said, "You're not going to build it. Your son will." But David laid the foundation of the temple. And when Solomon came, he was able to build the temple. And that's only 2 generations. Imagine what could happen in 4 or 5 generations. So we have a responsibility to stay engaged. If you're in a 9 to 5, to find a way to exercise your creativity, your freedom, to tap into what makes you happy. And even if you're grueling through cleaning the hot oil from the stove, even if you're in the worst possible hostile work environment, you are a human being. You are a child of God. Jesus came and died on the cross just for you. And he wants you to be the best version of yourself, period. So you can take the time, tap into writing, and just find what makes you work, what makes you tick, what makes you happy. And that's important. One of my favorite poems from Aja Monet, Say Her Name. She says, "I am a woman carrying other women in my mouth." And that's our responsibility. We represent the best of each other. So the more we can uplift each other, the more we can talk about positivity, the more we can make space to find our voice and share our voice, the more beautiful a world it will be.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's exactly like what my mission is to like just get enough people to wake up. Because then if you're even in the real world, and like you were saying about bringing that poetry in 15 minutes a day to your normal job, that's not just going to be 15 minutes though. The beauty of that is that's going to unlock so much consciousness. That terrible 9 to 5 job you had will naturally bloom. Like so many people want to teach abundance and manifestation, but the joke is you don't need to focus on that stuff. When you clear up the clutter of your own psyche and start expanding in an awakened way, a beautiful, harmonious, Christ-centered way, then things are naturally going to work out for you. They're naturally going to come into harmony, balance, and alignment. When we open up those channels within ourselves, that's actually all we have to do. And then the divine has a playground that it can work and enjoy being in, because a lot of the problem, depression and anxiety, is from a cut off soul. It's from the body living just as the body and the soul going, knock, knock, I can't get in. And we need to find ways to open it up. And that's what poetry is, one of those avenues that's guaranteed going to open the doors.
That's a beautiful thing. And
the key. Yeah.
Exactly it. When folks say, "Oh, I have writer's block," I said, there's no such thing as writer's block. Because once you're in your divine purpose, once you're on the right path, there'll be a flow, there'll be a pattern. You'll be surfing the wave of creativity. But writer's block comes about because, like you said, there's a disconnect. We've been cut off. Maybe something happened that is really on our mind, but we're trying to suppress it, right? Or maybe simply that what you're doing is not meant to be done. It's not for you. It's not of you. It's not of Christ, not of God. So there's no inspiration because there's no universe. There's no truth in it. And that is one thing we always have to be conscious of. We have to do what helps other people be better. And that's important.
It's true. And that naturally, like the divine aspect of us, is going to want to find things to please others. Like you were saying about planting trees for the grandchildren and the grandchildren, but it's as pleasing to the soul. I just planted 2 apple trees, but a couple days ago out there, and they're babies. And I'm like, we might not even live here when they're producing their fruit, because we might be moving in the next few years. So it's literally, I'm like, well, then the new people that own the house shall enjoy the apples. And it gave me joy to know that I was planting this for a future human. So that is definitely a synchronicity there, because I can see that. And like anytime you're helping another human, we're one and the same. We are all connected to that divine Christ aspect. That Christ aspect that Jesus brought to all of us is our uniting force. Like he is the most powerful being we have ever seen on that earth, on this earth, for what he did right there in that uniting factor. And when you come into that Christ light, we are automatically connected. There's nothing that stops us from being one and the same when we're in that place. And it's just all the different tips and tricks to find that place is what I'm always trying to unfold. Like, because there's so many different ways you can do it, but when you find the way that's for you, it's goes beyond words, really, to experience it. And then you just want more and more of it. You get like almost addicted to it in a good way. And it just keeps pushing your life forward and forward in a blossoming, opening, expansive way where you no longer feel as small and helpless as you once did. And you see the world and you see the power you can hold in the world with it. So it's just like that torch that you bring with you everywhere you go, lighting the way. It's a very viscerally real aspect that we bring the light of poetry. So
that is so important. You know, the Bible says, be the light in the darkness, you know, and a lot of times, especially with how we were raised, we were told to be quiet or stay in the corner, don't express yourself, you know, all
be seen and not heard. Children should be seen and not heard. That's what we got.
And not heard. Ooh, see, no, that's a trauma trigger for me because now I'm having flashbacks. But yes,
yeah,
you're correct.
Yeah,
and that's just it. But now it's different. Now there's too much information circling around for everyone not to have an input. That's why one of the things I'm always gung-ho about is if there's something coming down the pipeline, it could be at work, it could be in your government, it could be in your neighborhood, it could be in your family, where it's restricting the ability of folks to decide for themselves. That's a red flag. That's a red flag on the play. Ask for a replay because there's nothing worse that we can do to each other than limit information. So, for example, here in Florida, we have the banning that's going on of books. So they are banning books in the classroom based on the subject matter, right? That is such a, I want to say maybe 14th century mentality. Who bans books in the 20th, 21st century? We have internet, cell phones, we have access to everything. Who bans books? This is not Fahrenheit 49, right? So that mentality is what is keeping people back. Because here's the thing, if there's knowledge out there, if there's information, you have to share it. Once you share it, then we, collective we, can decide what to do with the information. It's been proven historically, and this is why I'm a huge and adamant supporter of doing research. Historically, humanity has always shown the more information you have, the more of an informed decision you can make. And the secrecy that the governments have, the secrecy that people have, the gatekeepers of knowledge and information, what are you doing? It's the 21st century. Tell people what works and what doesn't work. So a good example is payroll at your company. How many coworkers talk about the payroll process and how much they make, right? It's still considered a taboo topic when, if you think about it, we are all doing a similar job function. We all have similar job classifications. So the pay scale, as per HR policies, are very straightforward. Class one, X amount of dollars. Class two, $2 more. Class three, $4 more. So now we have this framework. Why don't we talk about the conversations? Why is John getting paid more than Jill when they have the same degrees, the same backgrounds, the same experience, but yet he's making 1.5 times or twice as much as her? Like, transparency is how we solve this issue we have of equality and who's getting what. And no, let's talk about numbers. Let's talk about facts. Let's talk about fate. And let's find a way to express ourselves more by first being honest and transparent with ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that goes so much further too, because that is the way that we heal everything. And that's how you find out right off the bat if there's, like, not that they're evil bosses, but if there's something going on. And I've been in jobs where like men were hired off the street at more than I made as the person training them. So it's like, it happens that like people, and they only mentioned it to me because they assumed I was making more, and it wouldn't be, and it stayed buried, but like it's a spot, and that exists in all jobs where there's this constant, you're my favorite, no, now you're my favorite, now you're my favorite, because when anybody becomes a manager, they get so in that ego space. But if everything is transparent and open, if everybody knows everything going on, if nothing is hushed, then it would be out in the open. Like my husband works in the hospital system, and they are incredibly tight-lipped and hushed, and everything is incredibly bureaucratic. And I'm in Canada, and healthcare is supposed to be free, but like the whole joke of what's going on and how much money just goes into the bureaucracy of it would be exposed if we were allowed talking about it, if we were allowed seeing it. And it's like, it's not, and it's so false. And then they do these like announcing to the publics, and they read the script, but that's only what they're allowed to tell you. And it's like, that's just one avenue, but it's exhausting throughout every single platform. And that's the kind of stuff that I just, because it's exhausting, and it's got to go. And it's where that bringing in of culture and bringing in of information and bringing in of just more knowledge that we are going to be able to comprehend and like assimilate inside ourselves, that we will get to the place where we will be able to know more and make informed intellectual decisions. Like once upon a time, a couple hundred years ago, not everybody knew how to read. So like you would have to have, you know, the guy that read to the people because they didn't know how. But that's been not an issue for like over 100 years now. Like we've been going to school. We all know how to read. That's all you need to know. This is what I tell my children. Just learn how to read, and that's it. Now the world is yours to literally get whatever you want out of it, because you can read all the information there is to know, and information is power. Mm-hmm.
I agree 1,000%. And it's so crazy when you think about it. And I'm a historian. I love reading history and watching the History Channel. And, you know, one of my favorite topics is, why did this happen? And who made the decision? And you realize that a lot of times it was either bad information, or it was a small group of people making the decision. And again, they didn't have the full picture. And one of my favorite, I guess you can call it a story, is a general tells a soldier what to do, right? So the general says, go over there to the village and drop the bomb. And the soldier replies back, I don't think we should. I see kids there. Our information might be wrong. And the general says, no, follow the chain of command. This is the hierarchy. Drop the bomb. And the soldier says, no, I refuse to do so. It might be insubordination, but it was the right thing to do. And that is what is missing. A lot of times the ones who are in charge, or the manager of a company, the supervisors, even in the households, you know, the dynamic between the husband and the wife, you have to recognize that both are equally important. The person making the decision and the person in the actual trenches executing the decision. And there has to be a place, like you mentioned, where ego is irrelevant. It doesn't matter your job title. It doesn't matter who or which family you belong to. It doesn't matter which part of the socioeconomic scale you fall into. What matters is the execution and the objective and the results of your action. And then, if you were wrong, admit it. Just admit it and move on. Don't cover it up. Don't hide it. Don't use your money to escape from it. Don't make it someone else's fault. Own up to it. And I think that's, and we are digressing a little bit, I think that's one of the things where I find poetry and writing comes into play. Because when you are in tune with yourself and you understand yourself more, you realize that certain decisions make more sense because they appeal to your nature and they resonate with your beliefs and with your morality. And then once you keep making those decisions based on those parameters, you end up being a little bit happier. You know, maybe you might have to walk away from the job because your family is suffering. Maybe you do have to go out and not eat any more donuts because you want to control your weight. Maybe, just maybe, you might pick up a pen and a paper and start writing, even though everyone who you knew from your childhood told you you're a horrible storyteller, you don't know how to write, and you will never amount to anything. Maybe, just maybe, you'll take the chance on yourself. Someone has to, might as well be you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many things there tied in. What you said earlier about blaming, because this is one of the biggest things I find trying to coach people through their own, like they want this awakened, happy life, but they won't stop the blame game. Oh, but my mother this, my father that, my partner this, oh, lack of partner. It's all other outside circumstances. But then what you say right there, getting in that place that we talk, that whatever gets you into that place, but writing and poetry is a guaranteed way of finding that sovereignty within, of finding that power within. And then the more you start to live out of your own decisions, the less you can even blame other people. This is why people don't want to do it, because when you are living from yourself, you lose that blame. You can't blame without looking completely crazy. And they don't want to stop blaming. They love blaming because they think that's power, but it's limited, very weak, fizzling. It's like having a water gun that's got like this much, ammo in it. Where when you get into that self space, let's say you're the guy that's going to drop the bomb and you see the children, and we have real examples of this, of the 2 nukes that they dropped in Japan many years ago, that I feel like America wants to wonder why all this stuff is happening. It's like, you guys did something very bad that's still celebrated as this hero moment. Well, those plane drivers driving over could have literally gone, no, I'm not going to do that. That's very wrong. Like, if we have that place, then we know, oh, the general said I should do it. Mom said I should do it. My boss said I should do it. But I'm seeing that it shouldn't be done. The Christ-centered, aligned place inside me, the divine, sees that this is wrong. And we need to come to that place of being the authority to go, no, because that's wrong. That's wrong. And right there, with every one person that comes to light, we make the world better and better and better, because they're going to make heart-centered decisions when they realize they are the power. Nobody, no government, no boss, no parent is going to hand you your right. No aliens, this is the part. No aliens are going to land and hand you your freedom back. You have to wake up and just go, no. And maybe it means being poor. Maybe it means smaller living for a while. But trust me, the divine gets on board and will help you do whatever you find your place in. Even if it's humble, it'll still find a way that you're always fed, you're always sheltered, you're always taken care of. That's for sure, when you find that place.
No, that is a fact. No matter what we have made as human beings, nothing can eclipse Mother Nature, right? Nothing can eclipse the strength, the ferocity of a thunderstorm. Nothing can eclipse the germination of a single seed into a blossoming pine tree, right? All of these things show us, yes, we belong, but there are levels to everything. And that's important. And the sooner everyone can find that poet within them, that person who is willing to speak out. And, when we talk about, for example, things like bullying, you have one bully or 5 bullies, and then you have 1 or 2 students being bullied. There's always a numerical advantage, right? Usually. But then you have 25 students who are watching. Those 25 students are the problem. Yes, the bullying is the problem. Yes, the victim also is a problem in terms of defending yourself. But the 25 who are watching, and that's something we need to understand. By observing, and this is a scientific principle, by observing something, you become a part of it. So no more can we be like, okay, I saw it, it's happening in Libya, it's happening in Flint, it's happening in Pompano Beach, Florida. It has nothing to do with me where I am. That's not true, because we're all connected. And the very least we can do is be aware. Being aware matters. Read the newspaper, follow some social media accounts of some real nice local people who are actually in those areas, and see what's happening. Traditional media, I think, is dead because traditional media usually has an agenda, and they've forgotten how to tell a story properly. However, thanks to social media and technology, word of mouth is phenomenal. You can tell a story. And one of the projects we do with my brand is we have what we call the Family Memoir Book Project, which is basically we show everyone how you can capture the stories of your elders, your grandfather, who perhaps helped build a railroad that runs through the center of town, your aunt, who was the first person to open a baker's shop. You know, how did your mother and father met? Put those stories together into a nice Word document, Microsoft Word, convert it to a PDF, upload it to Amazon or Ingram Sparks or one of those companies, and you can order your own book for $4 or $5 just for yourself. The next family reunion, you want 25 copies? 25 times 5, 125. Let's go. You know, so the tools are there. All we need is the intention, because how we interact and represent with each other matters more than anything else. And if it takes you finding your voice, going through some hardships to ensure that your decision is all right with you, then that's important. Jesus Christ is King. Nothing can change that. Our job is to make sure we live in love, we live in kindness, and at all times, be in peace.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that was very, very powerful. I feel I cannot top anything you just said. That is beautiful, and that's exactly where we should be. I would ask you, do you want to read one more piece to us before we'll start bringing this to a close? Because that was phenomenal. That was words to like put on a poster and live by right there. That's just genius. And that's actually a really good thing for people to do for their lives. If they're depressed or anything and get really in that space of not mattering, to write your own memoirs, to write your own book, and just to be able to print it out for $5. I didn't even know that was a thing. So that's beautiful that you can just do that for yourself, because it's easy enough to feel magical and stuff, but seeing it in our tangible reality is where it jumps to that next level. Yeah, like your show, right? Exactly. Yes.
There you go. So this is petrichor. And petrichor is a scientific term. And I'll explain what it is at the end of the poem, but I was deliberately trying to capture this moment. Inner Sanctum, Protecting My Peace Through Poetry by Dwight Thompson. Act 5, Chapter 6, Petrichor. Soil, crinkle, sifted grains, loam, wet roots, black richness, clay tingles, skin tones, broken stones eroded, cracked open, dust clouds, crushed leaves, sunburst, Florida water, vibes, sharp, seawater bubbling, foam, delicate, mangroves tangy, Everglades, filtered tap water, molecules, shapeshift, bloodlines, iron strong, green and brown particulates, streaming with energy. Clouds, rancid with ozone, bombardier beetle synapses, sparkling, petals seep, chlorophyll, xanthophyll, surface tension releasing, bacteria and germs, life within a drop of life. Petrichor. Petrichor was written intentionally to capture the word itself, and petrichor means the smell of the soil immediately after rain. So if you've ever walked outside when the rain has just finished and there's this rich, earthy, loamy, yes, that smell that is a mixture of ozone and dirt and cow poo sometimes, and butterfly whispers. That is petrichor. And so I wrote that poem to capture that essence. And that's not the beauty of poetry. If you are from a experience where you grew up on the farm and now you live in the city, there's a big difference between the two. Someone asked me recently, they said, how would you explain living in the countryside to someone who's only ever lived in a major city? And I thought about it for a second, and I realized it's like this. To someone who's never lived in the countryside and only lived in a city, how would I explain to them? I would say, have you ever walked in the rain as it's drenching you down? And they'll say yes. And I'll ask them, have you ever walked in the hot sun as it beams down on you, so hot it feels like you are parched and need something to drink? And they'll say yes. And I'll say, now imagine experiencing both of those things simultaneously, being wet and hot at the same time, walking in rain with the sun beaming down on you. And that is what the countryside living is like. Mother Nature in her glory, in her fullness, and you never know what each day will bring. And you can see the most, to you, possibly absurd things, but in God's will, it makes perfect sense. And that is what poetry accomplishes. If you are in an environment or in a place and you want to reminisce, or you want to think back, or you want to capture that moment from before, you can write a haiku about it. Right? You can write a short poem about it and capture that moment. Maybe you had a fantastic day, I don't know, you got a promotion finally, or maybe you were driving home and you saw a gaggle of geese crossing the street and you stopped your car to let them pass, 2 or 3 adult geese and a couple of babies. When you get home, write a small poem about it. Describe what you saw, describe how you felt. And that's your poem. It doesn't have to rhyme. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be complete. It just has to be from you. And that's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like an exercise that unpacks more of you to you. Like, these are the things that if you think you're a limited person, do this, do what he's saying to do, and you will find you are more. You are more intelligent than you thought. You have more room for information than you thought. You can comprehend information better than you thought. There's a lot of brainwashing and stuff that gets in and blocks us up, that doing things like poetry will unlock it. That connection, that intellectual connection to nature and the divine, and how, because poetry is always usually touching something divine or of nature. People are usually not, my car is great. I mean, if you're some people are like that with their cars. If your car is poetry to you, then poetry away. But poetry is always usually touching, and unpacking some kind of divine thing. And when we're doing it, it's not in vain. It's not like, oh, this is a flight of fancy. That's what watching your TV is, like the sitcoms you mentioned earlier. That's just relaxing for no point. In fact, there's never neutral, though. It'll be negative. Where poetry is something uplifting, awakening, and expanding. And this is something we really want to tap into now, because we are the power we need. So thank you so much for being here, Dwight. Let everyone know where they can find you, where they can get your books, and how they can contact you if they would like to, take on your assistance with their own writing projects.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you so much, Diana, for having me on your platform. Absolutely. For allowing me to share this moment with yourself and your audience, and just be part of the overall human journey, right? This collective consciousness that we are part of. Someone said once, we are sent from heaven, and our job and duty is to find our way back. And this journey that we're all on is part of it. Right? And everything that we learn, everything that we share, most importantly, is how we help others on their journey. And hopefully we'll see each other in the afterlife, God willing. So this is my workbook and vision journal. Essentially, let me get a camera lineup right there. It's 250 pages of writing prompts, daily affirmations. It's a mood tracker, and whatever you need in that moment. We have a program you can do as a monthly program. You can sign up and we'll guide you through it on a daily basis. We do a 1-hour workshop on the weekends. And it's basically about writing as an expression, curated, structured journaling, right? Not just random writing, it's for a purpose. So what we'll do is we'll do like a 2-hour pre-session. We'll develop a personal development plan for you. What are you trying to work on? What do you hope to accomplish? What do you want at the end of the month? We also put together a personal SWOT. And for those of you not familiar with that, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Companies do this all the time with themselves as a company, as an entity, but you can do it for yourself as an individual. And we'll walk you through the process to make sure you understand and see what makes you tick. What is your biggest challenge right now? And put together a game plan, 30-day game plan that you can do that works for you. This is my latest poetry book, Inner Sanctum, Protecting My Peace Through Poetry. 30 poems from any aspect of society, the universe, fate, and mental health you could think of. Available through Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and this is my first book, Pivot, the first volume of Pancakes and Spaceships. The audiobook is actually available through the Apple iStore, Amazon Audible, and Spotify. And you can find this book. Go ahead, take a read. It is about my mental health and faith journey in 2020 when COVID happened, which I still think we have not fully digested and processed as a society. You know, we had something major happen in 2020, and we haven't taken the time to really reflect on those we have lost, on the impact on our logistics and our operations as a nation. And that is something we need to do ASAP. You could tap in with me anywhere, The Right Warrior, on all platforms. It could be Instagram, Facebook, Bigo, wherever you can find me. You can set up a free 15-minute consultation with a developmental editor, that's myself, and just talk about your project. Talk about what you're looking for and how we can be in alignment with you and help you on this journey. Most things we do in life, we don't know the impact until later on. So our goal and our job is to assess, ask you questions, see what do you want. Do you want to publish a book in 6 months? What's the book about? What's the book cover? Who's your team, right? Do you want to develop a business plan for your aforementioned crochet business? What does it look like? Who is it for? Who's your target audience? What's your demographic? What's your local community like? Do you want to put together a strategic social media plan for your company that's sustainable, that's faith-centered? What would that look like? What's your video editing capabilities? What is your intentionality? What's the purpose of why you're posting besides selling your company? And of course, I'm always open for collaborations, contracts, and Holy Ghost writing. Yes, I said Holy Ghost writing. Just tap in with me, Spirit will speak, and you will know what that is about. Appreciate y'all, and The Right Warrior on all platforms. Let's get it.
Thank you so much. And I love the Holy Ghost writing there. That's a good little tagline, because that is, you can just like pull in that, and it's all love and light. And like there is this, like, I don't, if that vein is there to be tapped. And I love it. So thank you so much for being on the show with us today, Dwight. And hopefully we do have you back again. Next time you write a book, definitely reach out, and I'd love to have you back on the show. This was powerful, and I'm pretty sure our audience felt that as well, because this would be unlocking for anybody that heard your words and the wisdom that you hold inside. So thank you so much. We appreciate having you today on Transcending Ascension. And thank you so much to the audience. Thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you all again soon. Goodbye for now.